from what you're saying then, I gather that the need is for forming a relationship one-to-one so that help can be given personally, help and follow-up one-to-one. Is that what?
That's one point, but the other point is that I think it's also best to have an organization. So my two examples were, for instance, the principal, who's retired now. He has time and he has connections. Through his long career, he has many colleagues that he can call up and say, hey, we're sending books over, you know, we need more activity books, can you contribute? So I think it's better to do it in a bigger organization if you can.
You mean to find key people?
And support them. So he would, for instance, form his own little pod or committee. Because it's one of the things I found most amazing about going down to Mississippi and New Orleans was I didn't want to go at first. And it was thanks to my sister that I ended up, and a friend who dropped out of Harvard Medical School, that I ended up going. Because I had this idea about how traumatic the devastation would be. But the irony of it is that the benefit from the actions that I did were far greater than any of the emotional distress I felt because of compassion for all the residents and their loss. So, but I do think it's important to have support. Because, for instance, if the principal gets off the phone and has a terrible conversation, meaning, for instance, that the school's not going to be open for 6 months and it has to be condemned, and it's upsetting to him, he has someone he can call and just commiserate and support him. I think that's a key element in the whole structure.
Meg, I've often wondered about the organization of volunteer efforts in a disaster area. How are things organized? Say you send a truck down, how do they know where to go and where do they offload? And I often wondered, you know, workers here at Kendall went down to 9/11, down to the World Trade Center site. And apparently there, she went down with an ambulance, and apparently there they knew exactly what they were going to do. But I don't know how other people are organized, so maybe you could talk a little about that.
Sure, I like that question because that's my kind of question. I always wonder how things work. And it's hard to detect that from the media. So I'll just do a backstory of what happened for me post-Sandy, was that because I already had connections, I called people up and said, what's going on? We have a group of volunteers that get together every single year to have a peace festival. And it's about 10 to 20,000 people. And from that pool, usually someone from the region volunteers to go and to assess and to immediately put the word out what the immediate need was. So that's the first phase, and that's called scouting. And I'm trained to scout. So basically I go, and the first thing we have to do is find a place for setup and pressure treat it and clean it up as best we can because we're serving food. And then the next phase is getting tents in and our infrastructure. And then our supply line and making sure our supply line. So in Union Beach, we're lucky because my organization that I'm part of has incredible allies from Organic Valley, the dairy that sells stuff at the store, and they sent us a small refrigerator truck right away. So we worked out of that until we outgrew it, which was very quick, and then we got a tractor truck refrigerator donated. So after that phase, the next thing is it's an underserved need actually, but it's people like me who go in and direct traffic. It's everyone who comes in my world would get greeted, welcomed, asked what their need was, asked if they were resident, we start forming the relationship. And so, for instance, I met 2 police families. I never met the men. They were off working, but the 2 women came in every day to eat with their kids. And one of them was an incredible ally because she knew before Sandy the families that really struggled. because she had done volunteer work supporting them. And so I immediately got her phone number, had a meeting with her, found out what I could do to help her, and then trained her in everything I knew to do, and kind of went through the timeline of how things were going to roll and where she needed to help herself and where she could help her community. So that's the second phase. And then the third phase was controlling and specifying the supply line. Because that center is just closing down because the fire company, which was hosting us, was condemned. And they're ready to go ahead and raise the firehouse. So they need us to move out of their construction zone. So the Rainbow Response Relief Effort is going to move about 20 miles away to another town and set up there. The next phase is putting the word out. So announcing to anybody and everybody what we need now. And so we did that via a Facebook page and emails and phone calls. And so that's the critical needs stage of what I did in New Jersey. And so for now, since I have work responsibilities, I can't leave right now, I'm going to keep in touch with my contacts over the phone and move on to my next triple B, probably to the worst neglected area in east of New York City.